Yes, memories when I was 12 years old and I was taken to the Hussainias, as they called it here, and Imam Bargas. It was not a per se Imam Barga, it was basically it was Regent's Park Mosque, and it is the first time I remembered the majalis and remember the pain and suffering of a person, a personality in Islam named Imam Hussain. That's my first memory. And it's the first time I experienced the feelings that everybody else were experiencing. And from that impelled me to come more and more to Hussainias, to see what this was all about. I had no idea, I had no knowledge of what Imam Hussain was. I had an idea of the Prophet, and that is all.
Alhamdulillah, my first memory of Imam Hussain was when my parents used to take me to mosque during Muharram especially, and I used to sort of wonder why at that time people were wearing black and all the rest.
My earliest memory is when I was 12 years old and I was taken to the Hussainias. It is the first time I remembered the majalis and remember the pain and suffering of a person, a personality in Islam named Imam Hussain.
I remember 8 or 9 years old, we used to do lotum in the street.
I always wondered why people cried for him, but as I grew a bit older, I understood what made him different.
I still remember our first recitation was in the ladies' side, where my mum held us up to the mic, and we recited our very first Noha.
I came into this country when I was very young, at 8 years old. There were no workshops, Saturday workshops per se. So whatever we were taught is basically the Quran, but no historical knowledge with regard to the Ahlul Bayt. So that was not there. Everything was dependent upon our getting knowledge through reading. And reading material at that time in 1968, 1970s was very, very scarce, and there were not many Hussainias here around here in this part of the country. As you know, when you move countries, the very critical factors affect your formative years. And my first memory here of something to deal with some of the challenges that we faced as young, very, very young people, was racism. We had to acknowledge, we had to fight this thing called racism, although I did not understand it at that time. And that was the biggest battle. It consumed our lives in school, in college, and we tried to attain knowledge, religious knowledge. The parents did very well in taking me and my brothers and my sisters to the Hussaini, especially Stanmore Mosque as it began. But basic memory was just the challenge of racism, because very few Asians. I was at a school where there were 3 or 4 Asians there. I mean, so we had to fight constantly, and not just with the pupils, but with the teachers as well, and hence that had an impact on our education as well. And I think that made me understand more of what might have been in the past, with the tragedies and all that. That spurred me a little bit, because you felt that physical pain. So, you know, one feels, I mean, how can you not utter the word Imam Hussain without having tears in your eyes? Or the incarceration of Imam Zain al-Abidin, or the latent pain of Hazrat Ali Asghar, alayhi salam. Same thing with racism. There is a very tenuous parallel between that and what the Ahlul Bayt suffered. Maybe that spurred me to jump into the religion a bit more than usual. Secularly, I did not believe that we could acknowledge or understand Imam Hussain within the context of Western society. That was impossible for me to understand. But within the heart, the pain that he suffered is a pain that is embedded upon ourselves. I mean, at least in me, I feel that pain, which is as fresh as it was 1400 years ago. And that pain kept up with me, and that impelled me to do the various things that I do. It's just an empathy you have. One wishes that one was there, but we can't. But nevertheless, if you feel that pain physically, then how can one not be there spiritually? So, I mean, every day I felt that. Every day when I went to the Hussainiyas, I was performing latmiyat. You call it latmiyat in Arab? I call it, in Urdu we call it matam. And that was my salute to my imams. And that's the only way I could give some sort of validation of what I felt. I knew not what else to do. I knew not how to run the Imam Bargas, but I felt that if I could perform latmiyat with the feeling and with the tears and with the pain, then that is my salute. For me, it was a cathartic moment. That formative years between 16 to 20 was a catharsis for me. Within the areas, the catchment areas of Sudbury and Harrow, Sudbury High School was a school, and I thought to myself that there must be something I can do. You know, I belonged to the main Imam Barga, Hussainiyat Stanmore, but I did not have the opportunity to take part in it, except of course in the ceremonies and the rituals. So I thought, why not do what I feel like? Why not just do it properly? Why not try to formulate your own Imam Barga ad hoc? So I started. I was very much part of International Islamic Link, was a charity. I joined that. And we started in Sudbury High School, Sudbury Primary School it was, and we did that for 14 years. I started there for 14 years, and from a crowd of 2 people to our majalises, and even I remember nobody turned up once, majalises. I was only one, we had 4 volunteers, and nobody turned up. So from there to 1,000 people a night for 14 years, gave my heart and soul to that Imam Barga, brought in good reciters. I did that for 14 years. And I left my various businesses, and I left because that was more of a full-time job that required absolute energy, absolute mental capacities, and the acumen to do this. And it gave me a chance. I said, maybe Allah's given me an opportunity. How dare I not take part of that opportunity? How dare I not take by the scruff of the neck an opportunity to gain some reward, if there is any. People say sometimes, you know, some reward for the hereafter, because basically that is what we're here for, to embolden our hereafter. There is never enough Imam Hussainiyas, there's never enough Imam Bargas, and I would be very diplomatic in saying that we have Hussainiyas here, sure, but as I said to you earlier, I didn't have an opportunity to take part. Within that, you must read into in between the lines there that sometimes it's difficult to take part, and sometimes politics creeps in Imam Bargas. How can I not help for the Ahlul Bayt? How can I be denied helping the Ahlul Bayt? So I decided, no, I will do. I have an opportunity. I have about 70 years of, God give me a long life to do something, and I will do my own thing, and I will do in a style that corroborates the finest principles of Shiaism. Allow people to work. As you see here, anybody can help. There is no formality here. After the majalis, anybody wants to serve food or anybody, they're welcome to. Unlike other Hussainiyas, when they're dedicated volunteers, you may have to register, you may have to book yourself, you may have to do all kinds of things. You may have to, when the alam comes down, as the alam comes, it's impossible to get a chance to anybody to hold on, but anybody can, a child or a disabled man wants to come in, hold the alam, they are more than welcome to. It is free of formality, as it should be. Doing Imam's work, it should be free of formality and full of love. I do it out of love, not out of any other thing except for the love of the Ahlul Bayt, for the Ahlul Bayt, of the Ahlul Bayt, and for the people who want to do something for the Ahlul Bayt.
Found this place since I came here, because from Islamic Link in Sudbury, when they used to do that, my aunt was their caretaker, so we used to rent out the halls to the Muslim and all that, and then I started getting closer and closer to the movements, because it was a way for me to like get off the street and stay positive and do something with my spare time. I know a lot quite now because I've been here for so long now, you know what I mean? So I try like understand everything and try understand how everything works, so I could be able to do a better job, you know what I mean? So what I don't know, like I ask my friends, because I also got friends that we grew up together in this, like as well. They're all married now, most of them, and all that. So, you know, we go like different programs and all that, because they try to integrate me like in the Muslim Islam and the way of life and all that. So they try to feed me with information as best as they can. I like it very much because of me, I'm from obviously a background, and like the liberty, like we don't like really live like that, you know what I mean? Because like the Muslim, like the Shia Muslim, obviously, the togetherness and everything that I see, you know what I mean, they're always together and they're always helping out each other and all that. And very in my community is like mainly sometimes it's different, so like the vibes is always a positive vibe here, you know what I mean, and it's always a family atmosphere, and it's very good, you know what I mean, and we try to keep it that way as well.
If you think about the East and the West, and there's a dichotomy there here. In the East, it's pretty much well understood. The message is pretty much well understood. It may be slightly difficult. You may tweak the message a bit in the East, but in the West, what you have to realize is that if you look back and ask yourself, why was Islam brought onto this face of the earth? Why? To uplift the character of mankind. Now, how does one do that in the West? People who don't know what Islam is, people have the stereotypical view of Islam, and that is with your akhlaq. And as the Quran says, spread the message with love and sweet words. This is what I like to do, you know, with love and sweet words. That is how the message should be spread. If it is to be spread, if you feel that you ought to spread it, it's not a necessity. It's let them come to you and ask you, what is your religion? I love what you do. You know, I have many people who come in and say, this is great, what is it? I mean, that is the best way. The initiation comes from within their own indigenous community. That I find that is the best way to do it. But to lecture people, it's not easy, and it's not a good thing, not in the West at least. When you travel, maybe you and everybody else, we're ambassadors at large for Islam, are we not? Because you may leave the Hussainias, you may perform the rituals, you may perform the ceremonies here, but as you walk out, your religion begins then. As you walk out of this place, your religion begins with your hands, with your feet, and with your mouth. So that is how we spread it, with good manners and good akhlaq. And to show somebody, you know, I decided that when I come to this country, you may put this on the interview or not, that's purely up to you, but I wanted to be better than the white man. Because of racism, I wanted to speak the language better than the white man, and I wanted to earn more money than the white man. I felt that because there was the insecurities pummeled into me by racism. So that is a way to deal with this. I mean, if you say a Muslim who can speak beautiful language, or a Muslim who dresses up nicely, who travels and who gives great behavior to other people, interpersonal relations, that is how you do it. Not the stereotypical view of how to spread Islam. Because we are ambassadors. Remember, we are ambassadors at large for Islam.
What inspired me, I think, was just the way Mr. Padhani, in fact, organizes his majlises here. In fact, I used to go to our Jamaat in Stanmore, but the alims, the scholars that he had, that he brings here, they're so good that I felt I needed to come here and be part of what he has here. The atmosphere is very nice, and it was his behavior, his approach to welcome everyone that inspired me, and I suggested that I could be part of this team and have a stall here.
Brother, I always ask myself that question for the last 40 years now. I don't have an answer. It's within me. It's within ourselves. What is there to achieve than to achieve the love for the Ahlul Bayt? You tell me, what is the greatest love of all? The love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Ahlul Bayt. What is the greatest love of all? I find the greatest love is to serve the Ahlul Bayt. Even, brother, if there is no reward, the reward is within me. I have the reward with it. I have the satisfaction. I draw myself as we're not even fit to serve the dust on the feet of the Ahlul Bayt. And from my reading, you know, the education you have, the books that we have, the books that people don't have today, they're quick to tune into YouTube, but nobody wants to open a book. I have several books I read all the time, and I see that Imam Baqir alayhi salam said that at the end, if you read his book, the life history of Imam Baqir alayhi salam, he said that religion is nothing but the love for us. In the end, it's nothing but the love for us. And one day a few people came to see Imam Baqir al-Islam, and they walked such a long way that they had calluses and they were bleeding. And our Imam kissed their feet, and he said, don't worry, as your soul leaves you, you are going straight to Jannah. When you read things like that, how can you not then want to serve? How can you not want to love that? Coupled with the love of Allah, obviously, you know. They two go hand in hand together. One is obviously much more greater. But these things one is read when I was 16, as I said. And I said, this, I have to. I have an opportunity, I must try. I must take a few steps towards the Lord, and He will come towards me and help me. If I did nothing, nothing would have happened. I wouldn't be here doing this. I wouldn't be doing this interview with your kind selves. I felt that my task has simply been hitherto to familiarize the catchment community with beautiful idealisms of Islamic excellence, namely the warm beauty of Shiaism. And what we do here is we do every single program in the Islamic calendar. So all the wiladats we do, all the shahadas that we do, Muharram 12 days, Ramzan for 6 to 8 days, and basically about 55 to 59 majalises a year within the time frame, you know. We can miss one or later because of the booking. As you see, this is not our center. This is a booked hall. I booked this a year in advance. So next year's booking I'll be doing for next year's booking using the Islamic calendar and getting this hall. And I want to give the people best lecturers, some of the greatest reciters. Well, what is the point of doing this if people can't come in and take a message? A lot of people rely on alims rather than books to take knowledge. So you must give them the best. So I try to ensure I give them within my viewpoint of what I believe is the best. And I've been doing this now for 23 years. 23 years, and I've completed now 1,394 majalises in those 24 years, you know. So there is a bit of experience there, so I have a bit of a knowledge in what the people want and what the people like, and the style they want their azadari in. The azadari they don't get at other centres, they get it here. Hence, then you can draw the crowds in. The English majalis serves to illustrate, serves to give the knowledge. Today's young, it's very difficult for today's young. They're distracted so much with the phones, the computers, and the emails, and that, and YouTube distracts them so much, and it can misguide them as well. Important to have English lectures. Important to make them sit down in the lectures, as I was. And when I was young, I sat in both lectures, you know. Hence, I can understand Urdu and English. English is also my mother tongue as well. But it is terribly important. In fact, it's intrinsic that we have English lectures and never let go of that, because today's young are tomorrow's elderly, you know, and they'll carry the viewpoints, and maybe they will give their children, bring them to the majalises and say, you must sit into the English and Urdu. Is terribly important. Hazrat Abbas. That was easy. I relate to Hazrat Abbas because that is something very, 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 very emotional. And many miracles have happened. Many of the du'as have been answered for me personally. I have a lot of du'as been answered through his beneficence. For me, Hazrat Abbas then is something very special. But all of them, the whole atmosphere, all 14 Masumin, you know, the 14 Masumin. What can you say? This is very personal, but I mean, I will share it. I mean, I've had in my office, I have a small mehfil. I keep because during the programs here, it's very difficult for me to sit around. I'm quite busy, you know. I can't really take part and sit down and listen as part of the congregation. But in my office, I keep a mehfil, I keep the alams, and I keep, you know, and I do my study there and my reading there as well in my office, you know. And I travel a bit, and I always keep flowers on my mehfil. And I always wonder that if I change, you know, if I'm away, who's going to change the flowers and that. And, you know, I was away for about 14 days. And I had brought special flowers before I traveled so that I could change them, put the new ones in before I left, but I couldn't do it. And so I just didn't think much of that. I left, and when I came back to the office 14 days later, someone had changed those flowers and put them in the vase, and nobody had access to my office. And I could not believe that. I just could not believe that, because that was in my mind in my travels all the time. My mehfil is suffering, the flowers are wilting, and, you know, they go old, and maybe they're not a good smell on them, you know. But somebody had changed that. that, and nobody had access. And I asked my family members, and nobody had been to my office. Nobody can come to my office. I had the keys. I took the keys with me when I travel. So that was something very, very, I mean, you know, and I had that. And a couple of other things. I needed an operation for my cartilage, and I had to have an operation. I have a torn cartilage. But then I prayed at my Allah, I prayed, and Hazrat Abbas, through the beneficial Hazrat Abbas, I found that I'm okay now. I don't need that operation. And you know, it's still torn, but I don't need to, I didn't want to go through the operation. So du'as like that get answered, personal du'as get answered for me a lot. And you know, it's a bit embarrassing to share it with you, but since you asked, I'm forthcoming. I like to see this center, that it's very difficult to run this center if one is not here and that. And I would like to see that that in my absence, that we do continue. Azadari will continue, no problem. That does continue. But this specifically, in the way I want it, the message does continue. I have a good group of volunteers, as you can see. You know, we have some nice people here who contribute a lot. It's just not my efforts, it's the efforts of the volunteers. It's difficult because, you know, we have to set this up at night, the night before. It takes 2 hours to set this up. And tonight when you leave after the food, we have to set this down as if there's been no majalises. That's another 1.5 hours, right? Every program now, we have to do that. So it's not a walk-in and walk-out center. For us, we know the value of Hussainiya because we have to physically work for this. You walked in, it was all set up. But somebody had come last night. These guys here had come last night to set it up, to set this whole up, to make it look like a Hussainiya. So in that, I feel that I hope this center continues in spreading the ideals of Shiaism, the best knowledge of the Ahlul Bayt. We have no politics here. I just don't want politics. I just want pure, no controversies here, just pure love of the Ahlul Bayt and knowledge based on what they say. That's all. That's what I want. You know.